Hello everybody, my name is Shortline819 and welcome back to episode 16 of Shortline's Rail News and Comment. Well, it's official, Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern are going to try and merge. On the morning of July 29th, 2025, the two railroads came out and made their announcement. This has been heavily rumored for a while now, but now those rumors have come true. It should be stressed that there is a long and complicated process between a merger announcement and an actual merger, and there's still a decent chance it won't happen. My plan is to get into that later in the video. Before I get into the rest of the video, I will say that I have made two previous videos on the subject when it was still just a rumor. The first was about the possible motivations for the merger and the factors going into whether or not it would be approved or denied. The second was about BNSF and their potential response, which, needless to say, a BNSF-CSX counter-merger is now extremely likely. I'm not going to rehash what I said in those videos, so I'd highly recommend you go back and watch them first before watching this one. Additionally, there's probably been a tidal wave of development since the merger was first announced. However, for the sake of getting this out in a reasonable time, I won't be covering much beyond the actual announcement. That's for the future. So, what does this merger look like? The planned UP-NS merger would be called Union Pacific, with its headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska, and its CEO would be Jim Vena. So, on the surface, this is more or less a takeover of NS by UP. Really, did you expect anything different? This unfortunately means we won't be getting a revival of Southern Pacific, which of course breaks my scarlet and gray heart. Just kidding, of course, but why would NS offer itself up to UP? I suspect that the current NS management has little idea, or some would say even ability, to carry the company forward after the rough past few years. NS management will be represented on the new UP board with 3 new members, including the current CEO, Mark George. Back to statistics, the combined UP-NS would have 52,215 miles of track in 43 states. It would serve 13 Canadian-Mexican border crossings and 100 ports. The merged railroad would be the first true transcontinental in the United States, a single company with tracks to the Atlantic and the Pacific. Total merger revenues are claimed at $36.4 billion compared to $24.3 billion for UP and $12.1 billion for NS. The Ever-Holy operating ratio for the new company is projected to be at 62.1% compared to 59.9% for UP and 66.4% for NS. The merged railroad would employ 52,000 people, and that took way too many takes to get right. Speaking of employees, the two railroads claim that no union jobs would be eliminated and there would be opportunity for job growth as traffic hopefully grows. As for those unions, SMART, a generally more activist union, came out against any merger months ago and reiterated that when the merger was announced. They have serious concerns that the merger would have long-term negative impact on rail workers, safety, service, and that the merger only serves to drive railroad management's intense focus on cost-cutting and profit boosting. The IAM expressed concern about the merger, although to a lesser degree than SMART. LET and BMWED are withholding judgment as of writing this. As for more financial statistics, the two companies claim that the merger would produce $2.75 billion in synergies, which is corporate speak, with $1.75 billion coming from traffic growth and $1 billion coming from cuts. The combined company will have a value of $250 billion. As for stock, UP will acquire NS through a stock purchase, paying a 25% premium on NS stock, which they value at $320 per share. Note, I am a stockholder of both of these companies and do stand to benefit from this, so the beginning disclaimer once again applies. The deal is worth $85 billion in total. The two companies claim that the merger will increase service offerings by implementing nationwide single-line service as well as unlocking watershed traffic, which I get more to in my first video. Additionally, the merger would allow faster transit times and reliability through the elimination of interchanges, and the ease of doing business will be improved. There are many other benefits the two railroads tout, including those related to America, safety, service, workforce, communities, and shareholders. You, of course, can be the judge on whether or not any of these are true. However, the fact that they are putting these front and center shows that they are aware of Shortline's law and will attempt to gather any support that they can get. This is in stark contrast to past merger attempts of this size, where they focused on bringing one man and his operating philosophy to the company, ignoring many political factors. The merger, if approved, is expected to occur sometime in early 2027, but more on that in a bit. One of the major aspects of the current Class 1 merger rules is that any combination must expand competition, not just preserve it. Many, including myself, have interpreted this to mean reciprocal switching and track and or trackage rights concessions to other railroads. The two railroads claim the merger will enhance competition by making rail more competitive with other modes of transportation, such as trucks, as well as competition from quote unquote foreign Canadian railroads. While I do agree with most of these points, simply using these arguments seems to me a bit lackluster, and that they need something more to be taken seriously before the regulators and to fulfill the rules. There are also notes about how overlap will be handled, with the two railroads stating they can't determine this until after approval and that the merger is an end to end combination, with the networks of each railroad being vital. The first note, I believe, is more geared towards what would happen with terminals, yards, etc. The second note is more interesting, as there is overlap between the two railroads in the Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago market. I expect either the UPX Mopac in Alton or Chicago Eastern Illinois, or the NSX Wabash to have to be sold as any part of the merger. So, what comes next? A merger isn't as simple as agreeing to merge and then doing it. It's a very long process, the main aspect of which is the review by the Surface Transportation Board, the economic regulators for railroads. As soon as the merger was formally announced, UP and NS started to gauge the reactions of other railroads, shippers, shareholders, regulators, labor, etc. This informs their strategy going forward, as it allows them to see who their opposition might be and who they might be able to get to support them. The first major hurdle is the shareholder vote. The shareholders of the two companies will be asked to vote on the merger. If they both approve, great, the merger can move forward. But if they don't, then the merger is either called off, or more likely, the merger agreement is renegotiated between the two companies. Offers from other railroads are also voted on. NS is not allowed to seek other offers from other railroads so long as the current merger agreement with UP is in place. If they want to break it, there is a $2.5 billion breakup fee, which isn't cheap. After the shareholders of both companies approved the merger, the two could choose to try and implement a voting trust. Under a voting trust, one company acquires the other company's stock while the merger is still receiving approval. However, it still must be kept separate. This is done to give shareholders quicker returns from the merger. It must be approved by the STB as well. The downside is that if the merger is denied, the company will have to sell the other off. This was most famously done in the Southern Pacific Santa Fe merger, which only succeeded in the Santa Fe stripping Southern Pacific of its valuable non-rail assets while tossing the actual railroad to the Rio Grande. UP and NS said they won't enact a voting trust, probably because they think there's a chance the merger might be denied and don't want to end up in the same situation. Whether or not a voting trust is implemented does not change what comes next. The merging railroads then notify the STB of their intent to merge before filing an application 3 to 6 months later. Within 30 days of the filing, the STB either approves or rejects the application, depending on if it meets its standards. If the STB rejects the application, the railroads go back and modify it before refiling. Within 45 days of the merger application getting approval, public comments are due concerning the merger. These can be in support or in opposition. 90 days later, responsive applications are due. These are applications from parties requesting some sort of condition. For example, if CN wants to get trackage rights over a specific line as a condition of the merger, that would have to be filed in the responsive application. Next is the record building period. This can last up to 12 months and involves the merging railroads making their case before the regulators. It also gives interested parties the time to make their case before the STB as to why the merger might be beneficial, why they oppose it, why they should be granted conditions, why it should be denied, etc. The primary aspect of this phase are the public hearings. After 12 months, the record building period closes and the board begins to deliberate. Within 90 days, they issue a decision approving the merger, with or without conditions, or rejecting the merger. If the merger is rejected, the railroads can appeal, but this is rarely met with success. If approved, an oversight period where the regulators monitor the merger railroads is often implemented. This can last several more years. If the STB approves the merger, the two railroads don't merge right away. Typically, the two wait for a little bit after the merger approval to get everything in order, so that when the merger does finally come, everything goes as smoothly as possible. This, doesn't always turn out as the railroads intended, especially with Union Pacific and their past mergers with the Chicago Northwestern and the Southern Pacific. Expect this rather uncomfortable fact to rear its head during the proceedings. It'll be funny. When all is said and done, this entire complicated process can take upwards of 2 to 3 years. So that would put a actual formal UPNS or BNSF-CSX, since the process is the same, merger in 2027 at the earliest, with 2028 a very distinct possibility. Anyways, that's all for today. As a stockholder in both of these companies, I am leaning towards voting yes on the merger, although I would like to see the way the winds blow on the merger more broadly before committing to a decision. This is not financial advice, by the way. Do your research and inform your own opinions on everything before spending money, or just in general, which is why I link everything in the description. I'll probably go into more why I'm sort of leaning that way in a future video, but as I said, this is long enough as it is. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Thank you to Arkansas Locomotive Works, Jimmy Lambert, East Rail 111, and the UPNS press kit for some of the footage and photos used. All additional credits are in the description. Thank you all for watching. I assure this won't be controversial in the slightest, but I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye, everybody. You know, one can never edit properly unless you have your support bear. You know, you need a firm location to have your mouse pad and rest your arm on. You know, Bear has volunteered himself, but he's also sleeping, so he might not be aware. Isn't that right, Leo? Yippee! Bear!